Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
Welcome to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and not only is it Friday, but we are counting down to the end of what has been a challenging, a difficult, a ridiculous, but also hopeful, joyful, and inspiring kind of year. And it's actually been all of those things just this week. Maybe not the hopeful, joyful, inspiring kind, although hopefully you found some of that in your week. I certainly did. But it's been kind of a crazy week, as always. From the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, refusing to allow a vote to extend the Obamacare healthcare subsidies, even though members of his own party joined with Democrats to force a floor vote. He refused. To Donald Trump screaming at people from the Oval Office that the economy is great, even though it is not. To him maybe, possibly declaring war on Venezuela. To his senior-most advisors, thinking they were doing a glam photo shoot with Vanity Fair, only to have the White House Chief of Staff call them names in the article, and the Vanity Fair photographer becoming famous across the internet for refusing to retouch their photos and expose their fillers, pores, and everything else to the entire world. We also had white men, and I don't know if you've heard this one yet, but we've had white men in predominantly elite white professions claiming that they can't get jobs because they are white. They are being discriminated against, even though they have jobs. And almost everyone around them looks exactly like them. And that's just been this week. That's not even the whole year. But we're going to talk later in the show about ways to wind down your year and manifest the 2026 that you deserve. Dr. L. Tony Lewis, founder and president of Liberation Health Strategies, would join us in the 5 o'clock hour to talk strategies and practices for releasing the chaos of this year and preparing for next year. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about the economy and jobs, as well as the breadth of erasure that we are seeing when it comes to Black folks, whether it is books or jobs or data. The effort to erase us is intentional and it is expansive. Onyx Impact has a new report out called the Blackout Report that details the scope and scale of the effort to exclude us from everything and the implications of calling everything illegal DEI, right? Which, of course, this administration has been doing since January, before actually, right? But this idea that everything is illegal diversity, which, first of all, diversity is not illegal. But when you decide things like sickle cell research is illegal diversity and inclusion because the disease disproportionately affects Black people. When you do that, then real people's lives are at stake because our government has decided that they just don't matter. So joining us to discuss the Blackout Report will be Isosa Osa later in the show, founder of Onyx Impact. And coming up, we're going to speak about disappearing data and the disappearance of Black folks from the workforce. We finally got a jobs report. You all remember that we hadn't gotten one in a while because in August, I think it was, Trump decided he didn't like the jobs numbers and how badly the economy was performing. So he fired the woman who was responsible for the jobs report. We haven't gotten one. We just got one this week, and it's not good. Unemployment rose overall to 4.6%, the highest since the pandemic era. But for Black folks, the numbers are even worse, as you probably know just from living in our community. The Black jobless rate rose to 8.3% in November, up from 7.5% in September. Unemployment for Black men rose to 7.5%, while joblessness for Black women fell slightly to 7.1%. But the spike in Black unemployment, the Black unemployment rate, is driven almost entirely by the skyrocketing unemployment rate for Black teenagers. That unemployment rate now stands at a staggering 30%. 30% of our Black youth are unemployed. That's compared to an also outrageously high overall teen unemployment number that is 16%. With Black teens almost double that number. So the unemployment rate for teens overall is not good and hasn't been this bad since the pandemic. But we have Black teenagers now facing a jobless rate of 30%. So regardless of how loudly the president screams at people from the Oval Office that he's saved the economy, or how much his administration gaslights that prices are coming down, they are not, and he has not. They have, in fact, collapsed our economy. But for the very wealthy and taken an economy that under Joe Biden, you all will remember that his economy saw historically low unemployment numbers for Black people. And they have turned that economy into one where Black women are now creating funds to help give grants out and support groups for Black women who have been pushed out of the workforce. So I would beg of you all, because you're going to hear more and more of this as the economy continues to tank. I beg you all not to be hoodwinked by the promise of $2,000 checks again. Those checks are likely not coming. And if they even did, they're supposed to cover not only your rent, not only your groceries, but your ballooning healthcare premium. So $2,000 alleged dollars for all your troubles. Don't fall for it. The economy of this administration is built on lies and scams, and we should not believe them when they say otherwise. But we're fortunate to have Jessica Fulton, economist and senior fellow at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, joining us to talk about what is happening with this economy and if we can expect any turnaround anytime soon. Spoiler alert is no. Up next, Jessica Fulton from the Joint Center. You are listening to the Black Pack on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Light a candle, pour some wine. Grab a roll, the soft kind for a little me time. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear. Wavy edges for my rear. So let the softness caress your soul. Just relax, you're on a roll. Let her rip. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear.
Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear has the same softness you love, now with wavy edges that tear better than the leading one-ply brand. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
It's been said that when someone you love has Parkinson's, you have Parkinson's.
The Parkinson's Foundation knows that the disease doesn't just affect the diagnosed. It affects everyone who supports and helps care for them.
If you have questions, the Parkinson's Foundation has answers.
We can help you understand the disease
and give you tips for living a better life.
Find your answers at parkinson.org or call 1-800-473-4636. The Parkinson's Foundation. Better lives together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I got the champagne. Everybody's glass.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates our own Keith Underwood, host of the weekend entertainment show Black in the Green Room, on his recent honor at the annual National Arts and Entertainment Journalism Awards. Keith received a first place award presented by the Los Angeles Press Club for his entertainment reporting, and we couldn't be prouder. Congratulations, Keith, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. Over the last several months, we have had many conversations about the economy. And mostly the kind of gaslighting that's going on around the economy. I think you all's president said last week that something about an A++ something economy. Even though, and again, the gaslighting, essentially telling Americans not to believe the receipts that they get when they go to the grocery store, not to believe the cost of things as they're trying to holiday shop for their children, although he told y'all you're not going to be able to get too many dolls for your kids for Christmas several months ago. But the economy is not good, and I think everybody knows that, and everybody feels that, no matter how they try to sort of pull the wool over people's eyes. And so joining us now to talk about what is happening with the United States economy, and particularly when we think about how this is impacting Black communities, Black families, Black people, is Jessica Fulton, economist and senior fellow at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you for having me.
So I think we've been seeing, feeling, knowing all year that the economy, it is, just been a straight line down, right, since the Trump administration took over. And so even though he's saying that it's an A++, but whatever the heck he said, we know that that's not right. And we know that we are seeing jobs reports or not seeing jobs reports, and maybe we'll talk about that, how data is disappearing before our very eyes. But talk to our listeners a little bit about the recent jobs report and what that indicates for not only where we are, but maybe where we're heading.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned gaslighting, and I think that is exactly what has been happening, and it's really frustrating because we know from the data that both people, number one, know what's going on, right? They're aware of how the economy feels for them individually, but we also see it in the data. And the jobs report that came out most recently is really just one more indicator of that, right? So this most recent jobs report took a look at the employment situation for November. Mm-hmm. We missed October because people weren't working and weren't able to collect the data because of their government shutdown. Right. But the data for November do not paint the rosy picture, the A++ picture that people have talked about. The overall unemployment rate was 4.6%, which is higher than it's been in quite some time. Right. But when you look at the overall picture, you don't really get a sense for what's going on for Black folks. And I think there's like a lot of concern that I've had in particular, and people who pay attention to these things have overall. The Black unemployment rate in November reached 8.3%. So like when you think about percentage points, sometimes it's a little bit hard to get a read on like what that means. That means 1 in 12 Black people, Black workers in this country are looking for a job and can't find one.
That's actually really helpful because you're right. The percentage doesn't tell us that 1 in 12, 1 in every 12 people that we personally know.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Are looking for a job and can't find one. And the thing that's interesting about that and frustrating in all the ways is that that doesn't even count people who, maybe were looking for work and got discouraged in the past month or so and just, or, whenever, and have completely stopped looking. It doesn't count the folks who maybe are working, a job or working part-time, even though they really want a full-time job. And we all know folks, or maybe, I know I myself have been in that situation before, right? Like I'm just going to do the job that I'm able to get.
Right.
It doesn't count people who have just kind of given up altogether, right? Yeah. So there's 1 in 12, which is bad, plus people who can't find or can't get enough hours at their job or what have you. So what that means is that Black people, Black workers in particular, are really struggling. And it's not because people aren't trying. Right. It's because our economy just isn't working for them.
And we've seen the Black unemployment continue to tick up, right, since January, right, when Trump took office. I think the last numbers we saw in September, Black unemployment was at 7.5. And now, as you said, it's up to 8.3. And you'll tell me, there's no reason for us to think that trend is not going to continue. Or is there some silver lining somewhere?
Yeah, I wish there was a silver lining. I think the frustrating part about all of this is that we know that the economy can work better for Black workers under the Biden-Harris administration. And, in those years, we actually saw record low unemployment for Black workers, right? And in the past year, so from November 2024 to November 2025, the unemployment rate for Black workers increased by 2 percentage points, just under 2 percentage points. So it was 6.4%, and now it's 8.3%, which is a big change, right? And this is a level where if the overall unemployment rate were 8.3%, people would be frantic trying to figure out what to do, right? If this were the unemployment rate in a state or a county, they would be considered like economically distressed. We got to do something. We got to figure out how to support the people in these places.
Right.
Because it's Black workers, we're not seeing the action that we need to see. And I think that does cause a lot of concern because it means that while Black people are losing their jobs and are having trouble finding new jobs, like Black people are also experiencing all the other parts of the economy that are not really working for folks, right? So Black people are still dealing with increased prices.
Right.
We're still dealing with the fact that the budget bill that was passed over the summer cut the things that people use when they fall on hard times. So Medicaid and SNAP, and it's going to make it harder for people to access these programs. And Black people are also bearing the brunt of job loss. So I don't know that we see it getting better unless people decide to pay attention, or decision makers decide to make investments to do something about it.
So I'm not an economist, obviously, but I think that in the Black community, we say that when America gets a cold, Black America gets pneumonia, right? And so I think that economists do or should, right, look at Black unemployment and say like, maybe this is an indicator of something bad coming, right? So even though the overall unemployment rate is an 8.3, it has risen up, right? It has been sort of trending up. It's I think you said 4.6 right now.
Yeah.
And so like, how should we understand what is happening with Black workers right now and its relationship to the overall trajectory for the economy? Because it seems like a bad sign that Black unemployment is this high.
You're exactly right. The reality is that Black workers are and especially Black women are more sensitive to economic downturns, right? And so, people refer to Black workers as the canary in the coal mine for the economy. So that once something bad is happening to us, it's not limited to Black people. There is no specific failings of Black folks that mean that we should be out of work at higher rates or more quickly than anybody else. The Black unemployment rate spikes for a number of reasons before a downturn. Most specifically, because like when an employer has to make a decision about who they're going to let go, oftentimes they let go of workers that are in the jobs that are more sensitive to economic downturn. So you think about like, what do people do when they're uncertain about their incomes? They stop going out to eat. They don't go on vacation, right? Those are restaurant jobs. Those are hotel jobs, like hospitality work. If a company is thinking there may be a poor economy up ahead, they're thinking about like, how do I get rid of people that are in jobs that we can get done another way? So think about like AI and administrative workers, right? These are jobs that are more sensitive to economic downturns, especially right now. You also have to think about the fact that Black women in particular are really heavily tied to the labor force up until very, very recently, right? We were the we had the highest level of labor force participation, which meant that we were the women group that was most represented in the labor force. What that means is that when anything happens to the economy, you're going to see it in us first, because we're so heavily tied to working, to supporting ourselves and our families. And so, those I think are indicators, and I do think that that economists are starting to pay attention. The challenge is getting people who are making the decisions to pay attention and to address the challenges.
Yeah, and I think I want to, because I think, and you'll tell me, I think I saw that Black unemployment for Black men is high, period. I think we saw unemployment for Black women tick down maybe a tiny bit, but it also doesn't kind of matter because we saw the reports about 600,000 and apparently more than that now, 600,000 Black women losing their jobs since the beginning of the year. We talk about the places where Black women are typically over concentrated, right, in terms of sectors. We know that that's true for the public sector and for federal workers. And so this sort of explosion of Black women's unemployment, and that is not to say that Black men aren't experiencing the same levels of uncertainty and joblessness. But there has been this sort of focus and concentration, I think, on what is happening with Black women as well right now.
Yeah, the reason why the focus was so specifically targeted at Black women is because what we saw was like hundreds of thousands of Black women dropped out of the labor force completely. Meaning they were not looking for work, like they lost jobs, they were not looking for work, they were almost like they disappeared, right? And so that's something that I think is incredibly concerning, and I think there are a number of ways that you could speculate on what exactly happened there. But like that was a big part of why that conversation was focused there. I think throughout this year, there are some things that have happened that did disproportionately affect Black women, and that is not to say that Black men were not also hurting, but we saw the federal government, was it Doge, cut so many things happen, and it's like back to back to back, like, okay, remember this awful thing. So the federal government cut a lot of workers, right? And one thing that people may not realize is that the federal workforce is actually Black workers are actually like very highly represented in federal jobs. And so what that looks like is, I think in 2024, where something like Black workers made up like 19% of the federal workforce. That's 1 in 5 jobs. That's a lot of workers, considering that we make up about 13% of the workforce overall. For Black women, I believe we make up about 6% of the workforce overall. We made up, I think, 13% of federal workers. So when the job cuts happen in the federal government, even if you're doing it just across the board, you're going to cut a lot of jobs for Black women.
Right.
The administration actually did their cuts in a way that targeted certain jobs where Black women may have been overrepresented. So jobs that focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, even contract work, right? Contract, like nonprofits and academia and places that were getting money from the federal government that might have been focused on anything to do with race, anything to do with equity. And a lot of people lost their jobs that way. And so I think that's why we saw such a focus on Black women.
I'm glad you said it like this. It is the focus on cutting jobs where Black women might be overconcentrated in many of the diversity programs, the sort of civil rights oversight, education, right? There's sort of a surgical approach to how they decided to cut federal jobs. So it isn't like people can lose a job in the public sector and then suddenly just go over to the private sector, right, and get reemployed. Because the private sector is also shedding jobs in ways that I think that people aren't completely aware of.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of that has to do with the way that President Trump on day one of his administration released an executive order basically condemning diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. He had the power to end those programs in the government, but he did a lot of work to make those, he called them illegal, which isn't true, right? He did a lot of work to sort of try to scare people out of doing something that, like, it's kind of silly to me, because it's like these businesses chose to do these programs because it was making them money, right? This was an effective way of doing business. And so he basically threatened, or like there's what they call like a chilling effect to discourage people from implementing these kinds of programs, for keeping Black folks. And I mean, to be clear, it's not diversity, equity, and inclusion is not solely about Black people, right?
That's right. In
Black
fact,
people,
it's mostly not.
Exactly. I think it had the effect of discouraging folks.
From implementing the programs. I do want to talk about, because there is something tied to that is about data and how we collect data on different demographics in the workforce. And when we come forward, I want to talk about the incredible disappearing data sets that are out there, and what that means, right, for how we understand the health of our economy overall, and particularly for Black folks. So more with Jessica Fulton from the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies when we come forward. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is not saying if he'll veto an alternative budget backed by some aldermen.
If I find this budget, to be irresponsible and unbalanced, then it leaves me with very few options.
The plan heads to a full vote on Saturday, and the city must pass a budget by year's end to avoid a shutdown. iHeartMedia is extending its deal with Charlamagne Tha God, co-host of The Breakfast Club and co-founder of the Black Effect Podcast Network. They'll continue hosting the show weekdays and weekends with DJ Envy, Just Hilarious, and Lauren LaRosa. And former President Barack Obama is continuing his tradition of sharing his year-end favorites, highlighting artists like Kendrick Lamar and SZA, plus Burna Boy and Travis Scott among his top tracks of 2025. Obama says he enjoys hearing new recommendations, too, and his full list are posted on his Instagram and Facebook pages. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The college football playoffs kick off this weekend. 4 teams have first-round byes. Tavis Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas Tech. UCLA fans may find out on Saturday when new football coach Bob Chesney reports for work. Chesney, hired by UCLA on December 6th, was permitted to coach James Madison in their first-round playoff game Saturday at Oregon. When James Madison's season is over, Chesney will be on the clock at UCLA. Oregon is a 20-point favorite over James Madison. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford has 40 touchdown passes this season, one shy of his single-season career high. He's had 41 twice in his 16-year career. As good a season as Stafford is having, he's a long way from the NFL record. Peyton Manning holds the NFL record with 55 touchdown passes in 2013 when he was with Denver. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit CASMPvolunteer.org.
I can't believe how spotless my floors look after using the Swiffer Power Mop. No more dragging around a heavy mop and messy bucket. Now I get the same deep clean without all the work. Thanks to the powerful solution and scrubbing pad of the Swiffer Power Mop, dirt and grime don't stand a chance, and I don't break a sweat. Mic drop. Mop drop.
Swiffer Power Mop. Swiffer Power Mop.
A smarter way to mop. Try it or your money back.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. The Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack. I'm Adrianne Shropshire, and we are in conversation with Jessica Fulton, economist and senior fellow at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, talking about what is happening with our not A-plus economy, because the economy is the actual opposite of that, and we want to get clear on why. So one of the things, Jessica, that you mentioned this earlier about we didn't get a jobs report in October, and the justification for that was, well, we're in a government shutdown, so there's no one working to be able to collect that data. But we also hadn't gotten jobs reports prior to that, right, as well. We also know that Trump fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he didn't like the jobs numbers. He was mad that the jobs numbers did not comport with his fantasy, so he just fired the lady. And then we have seen some private sector entities pick up I mean, not that they weren't doing it before, but their data began to, like ADP just sort of began to say, well, actually, here's what we're seeing, right? Here's what we're seeing in terms of the workforce. And it's just bad overall. And so part of what becomes, because we're seeing lots of stuff disappear, data that we need across all different kinds of government agencies. I'd imagine that for us to understand what's happening with our economy or with our healthcare system, that not having actual data puts us all at a disadvantage. And it also means that the sort of gaslighting that we talked about earlier, it will confuse folks, right? Or in theory, it confuses folks, but people know what's actually happening in their day-to-day life. So talk about the ways in which, one, the data has sort of disappeared, but what that means when our government simply says we're not going to report out the numbers that are going to give people any sense of the reality when it comes to our economy.
Yeah, I think I want to start by saying, public data is incredibly valuable. It's a really important resource. It is very important that our federal government be the entity that is collecting and analyzing in a transparent way all the many things that happen in this country. The reach that the federal government has, the resources that the federal government has at its disposal, the expertise and this is part of the challenge, but the expertise that the federal government has is just really important in terms of making sure that we have the information that we need. And I think, the private sector, there are private sector researchers that are doing a lot of this work, but it's kind of like they can give insights in terms of what they have access to. Mm-hmm. They do not have access to the entire American public, nor do I want them to have access to everybody in the country, right? I also, I don't want to depend on, let's say, and I'll pick on the tech companies a little bit, I don't want to depend on Facebook that knows a lot about a lot of people.
Right.
I don't want to depend on them to understand what's going on in the American economy or what's going on with Americans more broadly, because I don't really know that they have all of our best interests at heart all the time, right? For example,
mostly do not, yes.
But but aside from that, I think that a few different things are happening. The president has been very intentional about basically firing, as you mentioned, the folks that are responsible for data collection and analysis. And I think these are, on the one hand, some of these are political appointees, but some of them are just very hard-working public servants who have worked on collecting and analyzing this data, who do this, and it's a thankless job because nobody even really knows that they're doing it. They just see the numbers on a website, and then they say, oh, well, good to know that we have, this many kids living in poverty. Maybe we should do something about that, right? The reality is that this data helps people make informed decisions about what's going to happen next. So why might the administration not want to collect it? Well, if I'm able to collect data that says that one in 8 Americans relies on food stamps to get their food, but I really want to cut the SNAP program, then maybe I don't want people to have access to that data.
Right. Yeah. The other part of it too, though, is because we were talking earlier about Black unemployment, right? And so, Black men's unemployment is this, and Black women's unemployment is this, and Black teenager, which is the other kind of staggering statistic in the recent jobs report, is the teenage joblessness, which is kind of shocking. I think always higher than everyone else, but just, sort of staggering, particularly in a moment when families overall are struggling. and even those entry-level jobs that you would think that younger, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds would be able to get, they're not able to get them. But we also know that there is this sort of, this rhetoric around illegal diversity, right? And so, and sort of the cutting or eliminating any data that's being collected that is based on demographics, right?
Yeah.
And so you could see the sort of next logical step here is not only are we going to pull back on overall data collection for the economy, but we're not doing any demographic breakdowns because it's illegal diversity to do so. And so therefore, we don't know how many Black folks are out of the workforce. We don't know the staggering differences between the economic conditions of Black folks or Latinos or whoever and the white population. We don't see those big gaps because they're simply not collecting the data. That feels like a real thing that could happen.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to disaggregate data because when we look at the overall numbers, we don't see that big picture. It's like 30% unemployment for Black teenagers, which is massive. We also get to see, because we have the data, that a lot more young Black people decided that they wanted to work in the past month. And that says something to me too about what's going on in households. What's the saying? Like what gets measured is what gets managed, right? So if you don't know that there's a problem, or if you can sort of gloss over the problem, then you can have any sort of explanation that you want for like why Black people are struggling, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of revert to old and new myths around laziness. Exactly. You can say anything you want if you can't see in the data that, oh no, this is how many Black people were looking for work.
Yeah.
This is their education level. This is how long they've been looking. This is what's going on in those spaces. I think that's also tied to efforts to fire Black women in particular from their roles. I think one thing that went fairly under the radar, because I think it happened so early, Trump fired the Equal Employment Opportunity Commissioner, Charlotte Burroughs, another Black woman who has been in that role and doing excellent work for quite some time.
Yeah.
Because the administration isn't interested in making sure that everybody has equal opportunity to get jobs, right? It seems absurd. But we don't know what's going on if we don't have the data for it.
Yeah. And that is, again, I think, to this entire conversation, that it creates an environment where the administration, the president and his people can create whatever reality they want to create, because they are the only ones who have the information. And I think that this is part of what frustrates them now, is that there is data and they can't just simply say, no, everything is great. They can't just say it's an A++ economy and you all are confused. But that is where we are. But that is also not the end of this conversation. So more with Jessica Fulton from the Joint Center when we come forward later.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Did you know that streaming music, ebooks, audiobooks, movies, and more is available for free from the Los Angeles Public Library? With your library card, you can access the latest music and movies, audiobooks and ebooks, graphic novels, comic books, magazines, and more. If you don't have a library card and live in the city of Los Angeles, you can get a digital card online for free. Check it out at lapl.org/emedia. That's lapl.org/emedia.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, we can help you move forward. From support while you bond with your newborn, to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580, and we are wrapping up our conversation with Jessica Fulton, economist and senior fellow at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. So, Jessica, earlier in our conversation, we were talking about the government shutdown, and we were also talking about the impact of that government shutdown on programs that people rely on. You were making the connection between when people are falling on hard times because people are losing their jobs, and then they have to rely on programs, whether it's Medicaid or it's SNAP, and those programs suddenly are being diminished. Can we just talk a little bit about that? Because there are other things in the original spending bill. I mean, this is the thing that hopefully we got across to our listeners, and that people got from other sources, is that this last round that created the debate over the spending bill, we lose sight of the fact that there was an earlier spending bill that was passed that cut a lot of stuff, right? And, when we look at SNAP, or we talk about healthcare premiums going up, in this moment, the reality is that those programs got cut in the original spending bill. And so when people ask what were the Democrats fighting for, they were fighting to restore some of that funding. And it became a debate just about the ACA, the healthcare subsidies, but they were fighting to restore funding for many of the programs that people are going to have to rely on in a terrible economy. So can you talk about some of that, like how that affects the overall economy in terms of what people will need in a moment like this?
Yeah, so the Republicans passed and Donald Trump signed a budget reconciliation bill back over the summer that was passed on a completely partisan basis, so just Republicans. And the bill was really focused on reshaping the economy and cutting the safety net. Like, those are the things that,
and indeed they did.
And indeed they did, right? So I talk about the bill as a tax bill because that's primarily what it was. It was a tax bill. They were trying to extend the Trump tax law from 2017. They did that. They were trying to expand some of the stuff to help wealthy people stay and get wealthier. They did that. And they were trying to cut taxes, they said, for everyone. And there are some small benefits for most folks. A lot of them end in 2028, which conveniently lines up with the end of the Trump administration. Right. But really the bill was like big giveaway to very wealthy people, skewed largely towards very high income folks who are largely white folks, and away from Black households. But to do that, and not to pay for the entire thing, because it was very, very expensive and it actually adds a lot to the deficit, to do that, they made cuts to a lot of programs that are really important to a lot of people. So They made cuts to SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is food stamps, to make it more difficult for people to access, to add like a lot of paperwork to access. They made cuts to Medicaid where they did the same thing. And they added for both of those these requirements around proving that you've done a certain amount of work activity in a given month in order to get the benefits. And you can only get the benefits for so long if you aren't working. Which is, if you are looking for a job and you cannot find a job, that's problematic, right? Because you still need to eat. You still need health care. It's not like your body does not go away because nobody will hire you, right? And so that's a big part of it. The other piece was the piece that got, I think, the most attention in this last shutdown fight was those premium tax credit subsidies. And those are the things that help make healthcare a little bit more affordable, a lot more affordable for people that have to buy their health care through the like Affordable Care Act marketplace, like the Obamacare stuff. And I think people forget that there are large swaths of American workers who may even have a job, but their employer doesn't provide them with a subsidy for their health care. They have to go online and they have to buy it. And so basically the subsidies end December 31st, costs are going to skyrocket in January. A lot of people, we already had an open enrollment. People have signed up for, either they've signed up for new healthcare or they haven't, right? They've decided, I will just go without, which obviously isn't how we want. You know what I'm saying? It's obvious to me. I do not want people to live without access to healthcare personally. I do not want people to live without access to food. I think those are important things that we should be providing. I think we should be providing a lot more, but, that was a big part of what Congress was fighting about leading up to the short-term resolution that they put in. And in January, it seems like we're going to have that same fight again.
And so this is so the people are prepared, for what's coming, because the 8 Democrats who went along with Republicans to end the government shutdown, essentially the thing that they got out of their capitulation was a vote on extending the healthcare subsidies. And so they were guaranteed a vote, and so that vote happened in the Senate. There was no question that it would fail, and it did. And then we saw the House this week. 4 Republicans join with Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries to demand that a vote on the subsidy extension, the extension of the healthcare tax subsidies, that there be a vote for to get those subsidies moving for people. And there was chaos on the House floor. It was so funny yesterday. I was like, are they fighting on the House floor? Are there fist fights on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives? But needless to say, Mike Johnson was like, I don't know what you're talking about. We're voting on nothing. And this all comes back, the entire fight around our government's budget will be back in full display when we come back from the holidays, because the government is only funded to the end of January. So we will see a whole new fight that will include, all the things that we've been fighting about, and could also include another government shutdown. Is that right? Am I correct?
Sometimes I wish that this work had more bright spots, but right now it just doesn't, right? There is a chance that we enter another shutdown with all of the awful effects that had for the people in this country. I think the reality is that fighting for healthcare is a worthwhile thing to do. We did some work at the Joint Center a few years back where we asked people how much, or had they ever put off medical care because of costs. It was something like 1 in 5 Black folks, like, you know what, if it costs too much, I'm not going to get it. And that means that we are now dealing with like people's lives in how we move forward. And I think the frustrating part is that all of this could have been, we knew that these tax credits were expiring in December. That is not new news.
Right.
And we could have gotten it could have been put in the bill over the summer. But I think the reality is that congressional Republicans aren't interested, or weren't interested then, in supporting Americans with health care. I think the rest of the challenge is going to be that a lot of the changes that were put into that budget reconciliation bill that did pass will be implemented over the next year or two, right? So they'll be slowly rolled out, and we'll slowly see the impacts. We'll see, states having to change their budgets and decide which programs they're comfortable with people having access to over time. And all of this against the backdrop of the president this week talking about what a good job he's doing on the economy, right? Which makes people feel isolated. It makes them feel like maybe this is a thing that's only happening to me, but it's not, right? Like our economy isn't working for folks.
Right.
And Congress is spending a lot of time not fixing it.
Yeah. And to your point, like, well taken, that there's not a lot of bright spots in what's happening. And this is clearly a government that is trying to punish people and make people suffer. But I appreciate the work that you all do to bring all this to light. So we'd love to have you back on to get some updates. Jessica Fulton, Senior Fellow at the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. Thank you for joining us. When we come forward, we're going to be joined by Sosa Osa, founder of Onyx Impact, to talk about other ways in which we are being erased, and not just through economic data. So stay with us. This is the Black Pack.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is not saying if he'll veto an alternative budget backed by some aldermen.
If I find this budget, to be irresponsible and unbalanced, then it leaves me with very few options.
The plan heads to a full vote on Saturday, and the city must pass a budget by year's end to avoid a shutdown.